So, later at night, I ended up sleeping with the lamp on and the door closed. And I didn't even know it. That was the last night I spent in that house, and today it's actually a radio station. And when I peeked a little through the peephole, I couldn't really see because it was a hallway where the room was. It was intense. Obviously that night I didn't get a wink of sleep because I kept hearing those chants. I could feel them.
Today we have a very interesting case which happened in a house in Bariloche where a family went through some really strange moments. They found the possible cause of all this, but even so, they had to leave the place. So stay until the end, and I look forward to your comment to know what you think about this great case. Just a heads up, this Monday at 8 post-meridian we'll have a new episode of Stories from the Other Side. I hope all of you can join me and meet the new guest. Thank you to everyone who joined the membership recently. We really are a lot, and also of course to those who can't do it, so infinite thanks to everyone who shares, watches the videos, leaves a like, and of course subscribes. Friends, let's not waste any more time and let's start right now with this new paranormal episode. Welcome! My name is Sol, I live in Patagonia, and I'm here to tell you about a place where I lived with my family, and what we still call today the House of Terror. In this place we went through situations that amazed us, alarmed us, scared us a lot, and in the end we had to leave. Because living like that was really unsustainable, especially having a son who could be in danger. It wasn't just our house, the whole area has something about it, and I'll share the possible reason at the end of this story. At that time, we had our son and moved to my husband's house in a neighborhood in San Carlos de Bariloche. Maybe at first everything was pretty calm, but that could be because we were focused on other things, on settling in, on taking care of our son. Basically, on starting a new chapter in our lives. We never imagined that place would be so hard to endure. One of the first situations I remember was a moment when you could hear banging, but it was absolutely impossible to tell where it was coming from. You searched all over the house, even in the garden, and nothing, but when you came back inside you could hear them again. At the back of this same property lived my brother and my sister-in-law, so we were in contact all the time. And they were also the ones who mentioned hearing these knocks, as well as other strange noises, although they hadn't seen anything yet, because as the weeks went by, everything changed and it got even more intense. One night, for example, the bedroom door opened. I clearly heard how the doorknob was turned quickly and the door opened. At that moment, I wasn't scared at all because our dog had learned to open doors, so I thought she had done it. But I was wrong because when I sat up to call her, I realized she had never gotten off the bed. She was sleeping with me. That's when the situation got a little stranger. The thing is, sometime later, due to relationship issues that aren't worth going into, we ended up breaking up. My son's father moved out and we were left alone in this house. The banging, noises and other events kept happening over and over again, but mainly at night. Nothing usually happened during the day until everything changed. By that time, my son was about 1 year and 4 months old. And something happened that surprised me at first and then worried me. Of course, I want to point out that my son, from a very early age, was already babbling and even saying some words very clearly. One morning, I left him in the playpen with cartoons on television to entertain him, as usual. I did this almost every day while I cleaned the house and cooked. And then I heard him start crying, but he started crying in a desperate way, as if something had happened to him. To clarify, I never left him toys or anything dangerous. While I wasn't there, so I ran over, picked him up, asked him what had happened, and I really didn't know how to comfort him. He was crying like never before. It was odd since he was usually calm. This behavior caught my attention because he even seemed scared, looking around for something that I obviously didn't understand or see. After a little while, luckily, I managed to calm him down, but what he told me made my blood run cold. He kept repeating it non-stop. The man is bad, the man is bad, the man is bad. I looked out the window, I looked around the room, I looked everywhere, but there was nothing. I wondered if he saw something scary on television, but ruled that out since the cartoons were the same as usual. And I knew perfectly well that they didn't scare him at all. And seeing him so scared, I realized it was obvious he hadn't imagined anything, and that even though I couldn't see what he saw, his fear wasn't unjustified. And I confirmed this over time. This situation with my son happened many more times, where he would get scared because he saw the same man. Sometimes he would start crying, and other times he would start screaming, but he always said the same thing: the man is bad.
Well, there was a day when, since my brother and my sister-in-law lived in the back, to get to their house, they had to pass in front of my house. So I inevitably saw who was coming in or going out. That day I saw someone go in. I just glanced over. I assumed it was my sister-in-law, since that's when she usually got home from work. My brother worked at night and would leave around 7 or 8 in the morning. I let it go, thinking it was my sister-in-law. 10 minutes later, I hear the gate again. Check. And this time it actually is her. So I open the back door for her, the one that connects us, and I say, "Lore, didn't you just come by a moment ago?" "No, I just arrived, so how would I know?" I told her she must have a visitor since someone stopped by.
She went to her house and there was absolutely no one there. This supposed person, who had come in just a little while before, had disappeared. And she made it clear that there was nowhere to hide, nor any side exits. The only way out was through the front of my house. In the afternoon, my brother came over to have some mate at my house and told me something that had worried him. He told me when he got home from work at dawn. He got out of the car to open the gate and saw a person in the yard heading toward the back of the house. It was dark, so he couldn't identify him, but without thinking he ran inside, assuming of course that it was a thief. This person had gone off to the side, so there was no way he could get out of there without being seen. There was a wall over 4 meters high. When my brother entered, something happened that left him shocked. He found this man, saw him from behind. He was walking toward this wall, and when he got there, he didn't climb it, he didn't jump over it. He saw with his own eyes how he went right through it, just like a ghost in the movies. I swear to you, when he told me this, even his voice was shaking because he couldn't process what he had seen, what had happened. I instantly linked everything, the knocks, noises, and the person who appeared but wasn't there. And also the episodes with my son, who would get scared when he saw a supposed man who was
Bad.
Maybe it was the same one. We talked about all of this and caught up on what each of us had experienced without telling the other. It was really incredible. On one hand, all of this was a relief, but on the other hand it wasn't, because we confirmed that something was happening in the house, and it wasn't good. It was supernatural. From that moment on, we started seeing it all the time, and it would always disappear. But other things were happening too, and maybe it was all connected to the same thing. For example, I saw my dog running through a certain area, but my dog was calmly somewhere else. One morning, my brother was stunned. He said when he parked, his daughter came to greet him, but she was gone when he got out. He went home, and my sister-in-law confirmed the little girl hadn't gone out because she was still asleep. This happened many times. We saw people identical to us or very similar, which made us confused. This man kept appearing, but luckily we always saw him outside. Experiencing sleep paralysis was truly strange. I know there's a completely reasonable explanation for it, and that most of the time it's not something paranormal. But the three of us were experiencing the same thing. It was alarming for me, and even more terrifying when something really intense happened to me one time. I woke up, I couldn't move, and I started to feel like someone was getting on the bed and throwing themselves on top of me. I felt that usual weight and pressure on my body. Until then, even if it's frightening, it might be a completely normal brain function. But then this weight moves off to the side, and that's when I can move. I hear the footsteps as it runs away, bumping into things or hitting something, I'm not sure. Do you know what was the most interesting and terrifying part about the bedroom door? When I turned on the light, I saw that the door was moving because in fact something or someone had hit it. Of course, I checked the house and everything was perfectly locked. Now, was it sleep paralysis? I think it was, but in this case, it was definitely linked to the same paranormal activity that was tormenting us.
So after that, at night, I ended up sleeping with the lamp on and the door closed. Because the living room and dining room, I don't know, they threw a party there every night. But there was one night in particular, and without knowing it, it was the last night I spent in that house.
I started hearing noises that at first came from outside, but then they could be heard inside my house. And I know it's going to sound totally unbelievable. But little by little, they started to sound like drums or instruments of that kind. And you could also clearly feel how different people were walking or dancing to their rhythm. The only thing that crossed my mind then was Indians or something similar. I couldn't imagine anything else.
And me? When I looked a little through the peephole, which I couldn't quite reach because it was a hallway where the room was, I saw as if there was fire, the light of the fire, and shadows and shadows and shadows as if they were dancing. It was tremendous. Obviously, that night I didn't sleep a wink because I could hear those chants. I felt like the floor was even shaking, like from the stomping or the dancing they were doing. That night unknowingly became my last in that house.
The thing to keep in mind is that my brother and his wife also heard the same thing, but at their house, in their backyard. Therefore, we completely ruled out suggestion on my part or imagination. The next day I left this house, and honestly it wasn't because of paranormal reasons, but because of family issues with my ex-partner. A rather unpleasant moment, something I was actually grateful for, because beyond the bad experience, I don't know what would have happened if we had stayed there. And maybe the big question that this whole story raises is, why did these things happen? The answer can be both simple and complex. According to many people from this neighborhood in Bariloche, the whole area used to be an Indian cemetery. Evidence was found during construction of some houses, which makes a bit of sense, since the whole town is built on sacred land. Also, she wasn't alone. My neighbor, the one who lived right next door, confessed to me sometime later that similar things happened in her house. For example, there's a specific area in her garden where no kind of plant can survive, no matter what. Even if she changes the soil or fertilizes it, no plant, not even grass, manages to grow. That caught my attention because the exact same thing happened at my house. In a specific area of the garden, no plant could survive. She also told me that in practically every house in that part of the town, entities would manifest in similar ways.
Currently, it's a radio station in the house. They sold it and it became a radio station. And well, that's how it turned out. I had the pleasure of meeting a radio host who is really cool here in the city. Oh, what a coincidence. She works or used to work, I don't know, now at that radio station. I asked her if her paranormal fingers tingle. She said yes, usually more in one area than another. Obviously, that house has been off for a long time.
And to finish, I'd like to tell you about another very strange experience I had with my son a few years ago, also here in Bariloche.
And this happened to us during the pandemic, but we were already able to go out. We already had a little more freedom. While living in Bariloche, my son and I decided to walk the Circuito Chico and visit the Roman bridge. So we parked the car, we went to the parking lot, there was one more truck there, but we saw that the people went the other way. Well, as soon as we got on the path, we walked about 200 or 300 meters and we ran into a lady, right? Behind her were 4 girls and me. My son saw 3 of them, the girls stood in a line, and the one in back talked a lot. I greeted the lady with a kind of bow, and she did the same, but they never spoke to my son. We were excited, talking. We were going to go to the Roman bridge and have some mate, since we hadn't gone in a long time because of the quarantine. Well, when we arrived, we saw that it was a completely deserted place. Nature had really taken over and everything. So instead of being a really nice place to go have some mate, it actually felt like a place straight out of a horror movie. We said, no, that's it. Let's just keep going and head to the taco viewpoint. Come on, Mense. And we walked. We had been walking for over an hour, and I said to my son, I don't remember this being so long. We couldn't make it, and when we saw the first sign, my son said, look, Mom, there are a lot of reeds there, and people grab the reeds to use while walking. We left them in the forest, and it felt like someone had made a groove with the reed all along the path. So we stopped somewhere to have some mate before continuing. And we kept looking and said, hey, but you have to use a lot of force. And we started to see, and of course it was like more than 5 centimeters that it had sunk down. You had to use a lot of force and maintain it. We'd already been walking there for about 50 minutes with my son, which felt like a lot. We thought it was really strange. Well, we stopped there, had some mate, and we kept going. And I said, we were chatting, looking at the scenery, everything was really nice. And then we heard children laughing, children. And I said, oh, people are coming. It sounded like it was coming from ahead. So we just said, well, okay, that's it. As we passed them, we asked, hey, how much farther? It was impossible to walk that far to the lookout point. Well, then my son points like this and says, look, Mom, I don't know. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a man coming with a child, though I wasn't sure if it was a boy or girl. I looked where my son pointed as I turned back and said, hey, no one's there. But I saw someone who was already coming, so we hurried up. Because it felt like there was a curve, and well, maybe they got lost at that curve. We arrived at the place. There was a cliff and reeds with nowhere to escape. It was impossible not to see them, but they were gone. Nothing else remained. I told my son, let's go back. This was getting really strange. We started to head back. We already felt strange. We were hearing weird noises in the woods, and we already had a really strange feeling. We started walking, and when we got to the Roman bridge again, we were already on our way to the parking lot. We ran into the lady and the girls again. Only the girl in the back was talking, like when we ran into them again, and the lady in the front was there. I kind of bow awkwardly again, and I say to my son, well, they must be bored since they did the same walk again, because when we ran into them, they were coming from that same place. Then my son says to me, Mom, with girls that young, would they really do the same walk again? We began noticing things, discussing them, and making connections. And yes, the truth is they were very pale people. Their gaze was very fixed and lost and lifeless. And we realized that maybe they weren't people and just repeated the same cycle constantly. All that area over there is also very, there's the Indian Otaku. There are a lot of paranormal stories from there, very close by. More than 40 years ago, a couple was murdered. And I remember that the park ranger from the area used to say, I wouldn't ask who killed them, but what killed them. That little beach was closed for a long time. Now forget it, everyone goes there, but a lot of paranormal things happen in all those areas. They also say that Hitler was there at one of the viewpoints near Itakal, so well, there's a lot of history and a lot of things. This was the weirdest thing for me. It wasn't very scary, but it did scare us. It felt odd, like a short walk that dragged on. We had walked over an hour to the viewpoint, but still hadn't arrived. This whole weird situation, honestly, it was just very, I don't know, I have no explanation.